Again, my friends, welcome once more to Leopard Street, into the cellar. Yeah. I just put down here, you may see there's nothing on the rails. Everything's come off the rails. There's nothing on the rails over there. There are some wagons and some coaches on the rails underneath, but they turn out not to be a problem. The layout has a problem. I came down here today. Let's explain what I was going to do. So, several months ago, I got a load of these Oxford Rail 7 plank wagons. And very nice they are too. And I fitted them with KD couplers. Now, the idea was I wanted to run these round for a couple of months and see how well they work. I want to use KDs, but before I went hell for leather on them, I wanted to try it. If they weren't going to do what I want to do, which is, well, I want them for the remote uncoupling feature, or rather the delayed uncoupling, so I can uncouple, push into a siding, and then just leave. I've got a goods yard. I've got a lot of automated coach operations. I'm planning on semi-automated. I need reliable uncoupling. So I quite like these. I thought I'll give them a go. And I've got 9 of them. They've all got KDs. My J26 has got a KD on the back. I've got a brake van with a KD on the front. And round she goes. So I came down here today, and what I wanted to do was just do a little bit of an intro. She's in the station. She was down here. And if we look at the layout on here, she was parked up in a normal place, and I thought, I'll bring her round. I was going to run her. I wanted to do a little intro where I was going to talk about this, but I wanted the train running behind me. Anyway, she got about as far as where that signal is over there and stopped. Well, odd. Have a look. Well, the layout's still showing occupied, so she's not lost connectivity. Sometimes they do. I run them at low speed. Sometimes I've got a bit of dirty track. I need to do a bit of cleaning. That's a bit odd. Something's not right there. So I went over, gave her a nudge. Nope, not moving. It's a bit weird. Tried another loco. Not moving. Okay, sometimes things just trip. So I turned the layout off, waited a minute or so for the power box to dissipate, turned it back on. She started up. Brilliant. Got about that far, stopped. Again, nothing else is working. So I went out, I fished her out, and I put her on the programming track, put it in programming mode, and said, identify this loco. And she went, and ran perfectly. Put her in running mode, tried driving her off the programming track. Nope. Something's not right. There's an electrical fault on the layout. Now, that sound of thunder upstairs, people walking about. I've got a known problem with some relays. They're chattering, as in, not always. Sometimes they just chatter. I thought, is it a bit of interference? Do I need to put a filter on the input? Start rocking the connector. Chattering starts, chattering stops. There's dodgy contacts on them. I've got replacements on order. I'm going to basically, this station board in the middle, we have 2 relay boards. These blue things. There's one there and there's another one that way a bit. It's a bit hard to see. They chatter. So what I'm going to do is this middle board's going to come out. I'm not doing it tonight because I haven't got the spare parts. This middle board's going to come out. They're going to be replaced. I'm going to check all the connectors. And I want to fix that problem. It also means the stuck relay problem should go away. And I've then got 16 relay channels on here. Good. So fair enough. That's not going to stop trains running though. If I just turn you around here. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you something first. So this board is not connected. Excuse the, yeah, anyway. If we come over here, you can see on here, this is a current meter. So what happens if I plug this in? Track power is on at the moment. It's drawing nothing, and it's drawing nothing because there's nothing on the layout that draws power. I've got 4 coaches with resistor wheel sets. They're not on the track. All the locos are off the track. And if I just put Bucky on here, a piece of track, that should change. We'll see in a sec. It might not, because it might have been in I'm tripped out mode again. Yeah, it's not going to cooperate because it's gone. If I plug this bit board here back in, is it going to work, or has it knocked itself offline again? It's knocked itself offline again. So what I'm going to do... Oh, nope. There you go. 2.7 amps. 3.5 amps. I've unplugged it again now. It'll drop in a sec. Just wait for that to drop down. Back down to 0. Now what that tells me is this board via this connector has an electrical fault. And I might have just spotted part of it, but it's on the track. Because if I turn track power off, it goes away. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to validate this. This is a little bit of fault finding, shall we say. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come around here. I'm bring camera around here so you can sort of see what I'm doing. If I put that there. This isn't what I was planning on doing tonight. I'm trying to get... There's a camera stand in the way of the camera stand. Right, there we go. So, I've got this here. Now, one of these wires, I can see a little sliver of wire coming out of it, but it's these two on the end that are the problem. So what I'm going to do is remove one. I'm only going to remove one. I'll take the blue one out. And now plug in. What do we get? Now, you won't be able to hear this, but I can hear there's an electrical fault still. So what I'm going to do is put the blue one back in and take the brown one out. And this is fairly basic fault finding. Now I've been looking at this. There's something weird because this all was working. So I'm not entirely sure what's gone wrong with this. And again, just for reference, there is nothing on the layout. There's nothing between the rails. There's nothing drawing power. So plug that back in again. And there is no sound to be heard. So if I just plug that back in or touch it back in. There we are. Right. What that tells me, now turn the layout power off again, just briefly. The fault is on the brown circuit here, and it's on this board because unplugging that wire there isolates it. So it's not this side, it's this side. This is going to be fun. So what I'm going to do now, yes, this, I'll say, what I was going to do is a video on KD couplings. And I think I might still focus on that a little bit, but I want to get this fixed. So I'm going to take everything off the top of this and off the end board so I can take this off so I can have a look. I'll be back in a mo. Okay, things cleared off. So before I go any further, this is fault finding. I used to do this sort of stuff for a living, which is scary. Right. What do we know? This is the first thing. there is a fault that is drawing excessive current. It is not a pure short circuit. That would just trip the thing out. This is drawing about 3 amps somewhere. Now that suggests something's going to be warm if it's powered up, or it might be melted or whatever. I know it is on the track power side because the DC side is powered up now. There's no problems. I've got current meters on the DC system, and I've got a little bit under an amp on the 12 volt circuit, and I've got about 1 point something or other on the 5 volt circuit, which is what I'd expect. There's lots of Arduinos and relays and other bits and pieces under here. The 5 volt power side, I don't have a meter on, but servos have been behaving. Yes, I've had relays chattering. That could be part of it. So I need to keep that in mind. That could be part of it. It only occurs, however, when track power is on, which tells me it's probably a track power system. This is further backed up because under here we have the DCC EX board, which is the middle one of that sandwich there. And that has overcurrent protection, and it'll trip out if it gets too much current. It's not hitting its limit. Its limit is, I think, about 5 amps per channel, and it's got a 7 amp supply. So it's not getting high enough to trip out. So somewhere there is a problem. It is either the brown wire, because remember we've disconnected the blue wire on the circuit, it made no difference. The brown wire connector does make a difference. And I can hear the fault. You probably won't be able to pick it up on the microphone. I very much doubt it'll pick it up. I don't know exactly where it's coming from, so I can't hold the microphone next to it. There's a very high pitch when it's connected, which is usually indicative of some sort of current issue. So the next step is going to be to unplug this end board over here. This I don't think has got a fault on it, but I need to remove this in order to do the other bit. Incidentally, I have got an order in. There is one of my locomotives is poorly. I've filmed a little bit. I'm not showing it in this video, but I will show it in the next one, or whenever I get around to doing that. The Knight of the Thistle has a loose crank pin, so I ordered a spanner to fix the crank pin. While I did that, I've ordered the 2 sets of points that are going over here, and I've ordered the rest of the buffer stops. So anyway, right, let's get this out. So what we do is slide out, lift up. It can come over here briefly, not too far. Do you think I'm going to do this actually? Because obviously this is eventually going to have a station building sitting on it. But anyway, for now I'm just going to put this on the floor down here and try and remember not to stand on it or trip over it. So that's there. That now means this board here can come out. So that's the next bit. Now this is relatively straightforward to do. What I'm not going to do is put it back on the workbench. I'm going to leave it this side because I want to be able to still power it on. So I'm going to take this out and I'm going to put it down here. In fact, before I do that, I've actually got a little radiator that sits down here. It's not on. I don't really use it. My youngest does. I'm just going to move that out of the way. Because it's about 8-9 inches wide and it does get in the way a little bit. It just gives me more space down here. So this board now slides that way, which disengages it. I can get a hand under here and it just lifts off like this. And this one comes this way because I need to get at this side of it. And it can come down here and it can sit on its end. And I'm going to do it this way round because if I do it this way round, I can still plug it in. Now it's actually got 2 little feet down at the bottom, which is quite nice. So somewhere on here, there seems to be an electrical fault, but I'm not quite sure where. So what I'm going to do is track power on. Track power on. I can plug this in and I can have a little look and a little bit of a listen, hopefully. The issue seems to have gone, which is interesting. Right, what I'm going to do, come over here. I'm going to reset my little friend here. Quite simple to do. Basically, I just unplug that and then plug it back in. Blow the dust off there. Now there are some terminals here. These here are the mains feeds. Now I'm wondering, there might be a problem with these here. I would love to put ferrules on this, but I'm not sure the wires fit them. I'm just going to try and have a little look and see if I can get some ferrules onto these cables. I might be able to, I might not. So what I'm going to do is track power off. Are we talking to this thing here? We are talking to it. Right, so it's important track power is off. So I need to, there's one of these two plugs here. One is the programming track and the other is the mains track. And this is the programming, this is the mains track. So I need the screwdrivers. See, I'm curious now that the problem has partly gone away. Now that doesn't touch anything. That's got me wondering about what it could be. Not 100% sure. Now I know these grey ones fit into this socket. So the question is, will this wire fit into the grey one? Yeah, not really. Right. What's the next size up from grey? Next size up from grey is red. So will a red one fit into here? This is the next question. I open this up a little bit more, it might. No. Slightly frustrating. Now this is going actually via my emergency stop circuit. So go back to grey. I can get this in here. Thinking if I re-terminate this wire, I'll have a little bit more control over it. I'm going to try and do that. This is 3202 wire. So 32 strands, 0.2 millimeter diameter, I believe is what that means. My American friends, you'll have to forgive me. I've forgotten what the AWG rating of that is, but it does have one. So what I need to do is get that. Get that into there. Crimp that. What I'm hoping is I can just get these to be a little bit more secure. I don't think this is the problem. In fact, I'm pretty certain this isn't the problem. But while I've got the lid off, it's something I might as well sort out. Just in case it's not the problem now, but it is at some point in the future. Here's my thinking. So let's do that. Twist that slightly. Get another grey one of these. And I am rather a fan of these little bootlace ferrules, I must say. Right. Assuming I can get the thing to actually bind onto the wire properly. I say this wire is really a little bit big for these, but oh well, we'll see. So that goes into there. That's that. So if I plug that into the other one of these, this is just a little, while I'm down here, I might as well do it. So that can go into, that goes back into there. Right. And check my little emergency stop circuit still works. I can still hear the relays clicking. I can hear the switches clicking. Good. Okay. Now, get the crimps and that out of the way. Well, say out of the way. It's very hard to get anything out of the way here. So what I now need to do is reset this again. Turn track power back on, or at least try to. Unknown. Okay. Is that going to come back online? Let's come back online. Right, track power is apparently back on. So what I'm going to do is just check that. I just want to make sure there is actually track power. So it says 14.9 volts AC. Now, I don't have a true RMS meter that can do digital stuff, but that's better than nothing. So if I now plug this board back in, I'm not hearing the fault. So have I still got power is the obvious question. So again, I shall try it with my meter on here. That's still showing power. I have power on the connector, and if I turn this around here, I've got rails protruding here. So what I'm going to do is just try those. I have track power there. So I've had a fault, and simply by unplugging and moving the board, the fault has gone away. Now that's interesting. I don't like faults like that. What that suggests is it's something, thin strand of whatever that's just been resting somewhere, and just the act of disturbing the layout has dealt with it. Don't like that. The reason I don't like it is because you're never quite sure what when a problem just goes, you're always left wondering, have I fixed that? Or is it now just hidden? I'm running my fingers over things down here, and there's nothing warm. There's nothing warm. There's nothing that looks scorched. I mean, if I'm bringing you around here, I mean, this board doesn't have a huge amount under it at the moment. It needs a relay controller. They have actually arrived now. I'm not putting it in today because obviously I've got at least 4 uncouplers to do on here. There's another bunch of them down at the other end. So this board's going to have 7 uncoupling servos added to it. It's going to have at least 1 point on it as well. Okay, well, then I'm just trying to position that so I can see it. The next step then is put this back on and see if the problem's gone. And if it has, I'm going to have to keep an eye on it to see whether it comes back. I rather suspect if the problem goes away and it does come back, it is dirt somewhere that's causing it. So what I'm going to do now is lift this. Thankfully, it's not actually very heavy at the moment. It'll get heavier when it's got more stuff fitted to it. It is actually a slight flaw in the layout's design. I did I mean, this was all considered. Perhaps not as much as it should have been, is what I'm going to say about that. So that thing comes back, slides in there like so. Right. Can I now plug it back in again? Fault is back. Separate the boards. Fault has gone. Think I may have just found out what the problem is. I put you up here and tilt this down a bit. I was going to quite jerk like that. This here, I think it might be this point. Now, this is set. If I turn the track power off, these rails are presumably touching. If they are, I'm just going to have to file at the end of one of them to make sure they don't, because they're not supposed to. But what I need to do is just check the continuity. So put this back in bleep mode, which is where it just goes like this when it gets continuity. So between, we're not plugged in. So if I plug back in, remember there's no power on at the moment. If I do that to there, there's continuity. Right. There is a short circuit, but that might be deliberate, and it is deliberate. This section of track is fed from this point. This point is set to go straight through, so these two rails are connected together at the moment. Okay. This point is set to come around here, so that and that should be connected and are. That and that should be connected and aren't. Right. So the problem here is that that rail should be connected to this frog and isn't. That rail shouldn't be connected to that frog and is. So if I just tell that point to change, we should be powered on. And that's that one. There's your problem. Right. This point, it's moving. What it's not doing, I find the relays, is clicking. Which it now has. So that continuity, no short circuit. Right. That's actually good. That means I've found what the problem is. It's not the point. Remember those relays I said I was having trouble with? The relay for this isn't switching. And this would actually explain a few other problems. This would explain, because I've had some issues with it. I've had some issues with sticky relays. One of the relay channels on that board is already disconnected because it just wouldn't change. Or it would, but I had to tap it to make it change. There's another one that's now sticking as well. So what's happening is that point, when it's set for straight ahead, remember these are electrofrog points. So I'll put you here. I can find a pen. I can point to this. When this point is set for straight ahead, in fact, let's set it for straight ahead. Now the relay clicked then. I don't know if you heard that, but I certainly did. So this rail is one polarity, in this case brown. This rail is blue. This bit in the middle is now blue. So these two are the same, which we detected. So if I turn that, I've got no relay clicking. In fact, actually, you might be able to hear this. If I push this under here, if I tap this. Right. Now, I don't know if you could hear that second click as I tapped it. That relay is sticking. So that's the cause of my my little electrical gremlin. What this means is this is now in position. In fact, if I just rock it again, relay will reset itself. So this is now set for blue. This should be set for brown, but isn't. It's set for blue. Now that's not causing a problem because the rails are clipped here. So this is blue. This side is also blue. The frog and over here is blue. Should be brown. Over here, blue, brown. This is supposed to be an insulating join. Now this has actually highlighted another issue because even if that relay was throwing properly, these rails are not supposed to touch. So what I need to do is turn the power off. The track power is off. I need to make sure these rails don't touch. So I need to bring this back in, and they are touching. They shouldn't be. They should be the thickness of a saw blade apart, and they're not. Now it's only actually that one that matters. Now, so this one matters as well. So what I need to do, and I can't, I can do a continuity test actually, but to do it, I've got to do a bit of unplugging. Basically, they're all wired up underneath, so if I don't unplug them, it won't work. So if I do this now back into continuity mode, what I should find is that these tracks do not touch each other. So that continuity none. But if I close that up fully, these that shouldn't touch are now touching. So that is a problem. And it's the third law of SOD, of course. So there's two ways of doing this. One is I can file those rails, which is probably what I'm going to do. So if I open that out, I just need to file a little bit off these rails, just to make sure there is always going to be a gap. The other thing is put some shims in there so they never come back together again. So what I'm going to do is take a file. I'm going to do this with it. Now I can only do this downwards, because otherwise I'm going to pull the sleepers off. And I need to file those back a bit. In fact, that may be a rotary tool job, just to smooth those back out a little. It would also explain why this fault has been somewhat intermittent, because it'll be to do with the positioning of this board. Because if that goes back together and goes like so, there's now a gap between those rails. I suspect that gap needs to be a little larger. It's very, very slight. I mean, I doubt it'll show on the camera. Yeah, especially if it's not in shot, it won't. But this one here, these two rails are touching, which they shouldn't be. So if I do that, what I can do is I can look down there. There is light through there. So it doesn't need much. So I'm going to carry on with that. I'll be back in a sec. Okay, a little bit of work with the file. So if I now bring these boards back together, and what we do is we do the bleepy test again. I may end up having to do a little bit more of this, but we'll see for now. So I'll just make sure these boards are as close together as they get. Nothing, 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 nothing. And then programming track as well, just because I'm here at the same time. Right, they're all clear. So what I'm now going to do is plug both boards back in. everything fires up. I'm going to turn the track power back on. Where it says it's unknown. The reason it's saying it's unknown is because JMRI has a thing when it disconnects from the layout briefly. Sometimes when the layout comes back, it won't reconnect without you restarting it. One thing I must note, since I've put this new PC in, JMRI doesn't half start quicker. So wait for this thing to wake up. That's that one, that's that one, that's that. That's back online. Track power back on. So if I now push these boards around, I'm not getting the electrical fault back. So the big test is, can I run a train? So what I'm going to do is bring my J26, this is where this started. I'm going to put it on this track. I'm not putting it on that one because I know that relay's sticking, so I don't particularly want to do that. So track power is on. I'm going to go Tools, Throttles, New Throttle. I'm going to select J26. And we have power. And she runs, so... yes. I had another point that wasn't set correctly. This is where I need to get the signalling system working properly so that I know I've got a problem. So take it forward again, try whistle again. Here we go. Crosses the gap onto the adjacent board section. And we can reverse and come back. Right. So, yeah, that's been a little fault finding session. Frustrating. Basically my own fault. I've been relying on board gaps as insulating joins. I guess the learning point there is don't rely on board gaps for insulating joins. Yeah, I may file those a bit more. Just as a final aside on what I was actually going to do. As I said, I got these 7 plank wagons. Now, they couple up quite nicely. I've got, as you may have seen, although it's under the layout, so it's awkward to get hold of, got a rake of these. Now, as you can see, it's in pieces. This one's now got a KD coupling on one end. So, in the next video, what we're going to look at is this little adapter piece I've stuck on the underside of that to take a KD coupling. And I'm going to convert some wagons, some of these old Hornby wagons, to KD couplings. I'm also going to add a bit more weight. So, that will be the next video. That's enough for this one. A little bit of a debugging session there. So, yes. Yeah, moral of the story, if you're using board joins as insulating gaps, make sure there is actually a gap there. It's weird. What that basically suggests is the boards weren't quite as close together as they could have been when I glued the track down. And then when I cut it, there's obviously a gap. Things have moved. And as I've been running trains and I've nudged this board, oh, that'll be where the faults come from. Yeah. Not what I was expecting, but anyway. That's it for this video. Likes, comments, shares, laughter. Again, Kelly, if you'd done this properly, you wouldn't have half of these problems. Yes, you're quite right. This is obviously a complete artifact of this layout being modular, or at least dismantleable. If this was a permanent layout, these gaps would have insulating rail joiners where they need them, and this problem would never have occurred. So again, I've spent an evening fixing a fault that if I built the layout better would never have occurred. Until the next one, my friends, enjoy the rest of your week. This has been Leopard Street. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye. Yeah, you stay out of this.